Station. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Tuesday edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Glad to have you guys on board the show today. We got a lot of football to get into. NFL Week 2 is in the books. Plus, we will get into the NFC East, a little state of the NFC East. Also, our guest this hour will be Gary Myers. You've heard him on the show before. Of course, he is the author of the book bestsellers Manning versus Brady, as well as that Cowboys book that he wrote. So we will get into all that more. He has a new book called Once a Giant, just came out. So we will discuss with Gary about some of his books. You know, the Giants, obviously part of the NFC East. We'll get his perspective on, you know, what the Giants past has a little something to do with the present of the NFC East. So all that and more coming up on 97.3 ESPN. As always, you can join the conversation at 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. And, you know, one of the takeaways from week 2 is that I think that we have to be very careful in how demonstrative we are in judging some of these teams. Because, you know, does anybody out there think that and again, I'm just using this as an example, okay? You look at the NFL standings. Does anybody think that the Washington Commanders are a better team than the Kansas City Chiefs? Or does anybody believe that the Atlanta Falcons or New Orleans Saints are better teams than the Kansas City Chiefs? I think most people would say absolutely not. But the Kansas City Chiefs are 1-1 this year. And they had a pretty poor loss at home week 1 of the season. The Jags had a big win in week 1 on the road. They come home and they lay a dud in week 2. So does anybody think the Indianapolis Colts are as good or better than the Jags? Of course you don't. What about the Steelers? Definitely not. Browns? Nope. How about the Las Vegas Raiders? Of course not. One of the problems we have this early in the season is that the win-loss record has very little to do with how good or bad your team is this time of year. This time of year, you got to let the season play out. You got to let things kind of, to use the Hank Stram term when he was the Chiefs head coach, matriculate down the season, to paraphrase the term. So when you're talking about who are the best teams in the NFL right now, we all know the Eagles are one of them. But I also understand that there are a lot of power rankings out there that have teams ahead of the Eagles. And so, you know, I looked at, you know, earlier today, and I'm working on an article right now for 973ESPN.com, the 973 ESPN mobile app, about how not one, not two, but 3 different power ranking websites all have the Eagles as the 3rd best team in the NFL. And on the surface, it doesn't seem that far-fetched because it's a power ranking of the teams right here, right now. Right here, right now on September 19th, the Eagles are a good team that is injured. Remember, James Bradbury did not play in week 2. You will not have Nakobe Dean for at least the first, you know, for the next 4 games, basically 4 to 5 games, he will be out. Kenny Gainwell didn't even play on Thursday Night Football. So what does that mean for this team? It means that they're not 100%. So you cannot say they're the best team. The problem I have with these rankings is that 2 of the 3 of them have the Cowboys ahead of the Eagles in those rankings. And I have a huge problem with that. And it's not because they're the Cowboys. I have a problem with it because what you're doing is you're giving the Cowboys credit for style points. This is not the college football BCS era where win margin was factored into the computer's formula for what team should or shouldn't make the national championship game or go to a bowl game. The Cowboys played two, I think it's very fair to say, average to below average football teams. They beat up on a Jets team that did not have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. And they shut down a Giants team that was down 20-0 at halftime last week. And I'm supposed to sit here and be like, the Cowboys are great. No, I believe the Cowboys are a playoff team. I think the Cowboys are arguably the second or third best team in the NFC. But the Eagles went on the road in the rain and beat a competitive, strong-willed Patriots team that's better than their 0-2 record says. And then they came home and they beat a Vikings team that realistically fought tooth and nail the entire game. And Kirk Cousins deserves a ton of credit for keeping his team in that game, in that competition. So I'm not going to act like the Eagles had a worse set of opponents than the Cowboys, and that's why they should be lower. In fact, I would argue the Cowboys had an easier first two games than the Eagles did. But yet we're giving them credit on style points. If you want to tell me right now the 49ers are better than the Eagles, I'll give you that because the 49ers are healthier. And the 49ers won a very interesting game, a close game, a hard-fought game against the Rams. One of the rankings have the Miami Dolphins ahead of the Eagles. Look, the Dolphins and the Eagles beat the same team, the New England Patriots. And both games, the Eagles winning 25-20, the Dolphins winning 24-17, were close, hard-fought games. Now, if you want to say, well, the Dolphins have a more high-powered offense right now than the Eagles, you could make that argument. Tua has started out of the gate on fire. Tua is probably the front runner to win MVP right now, is what I would probably assume. I haven't looked at the MVP odds recently, but my working assumption is that he is ahead of them. So what do we do then? Are the Dolphins really a better team than the Eagles? And that's where these power rankings are really splitting hairs. So I'm not going to get up here and act like the Eagles are a better or worse team than some of these other teams. But I think that we got to be honest and say style points don't matter in the NFL. The better team wins in the NFL. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on Game Night 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. So what is the NFC East right now? Well, the NFC East has no teams that had not won any games this year. In fact, the NFC East is the only conference in football, the only one that does not have a winless team in their division. Cowboys are 2-0. Eagles are 2-0. Commanders are 2-0. Giants are 1-1. As I was talking with Ron Motti yesterday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, I said, I think we got to give the Giants a lot of credit. On one hand, we got to admit it's Jonathan Gannon. His team has choked away 2 games to start the year. But the Giants, they were behind insurmountable odds. They found a way to come back and win. They deserve a ton of credit. And I think Brian Daboll still has the pulse of that team. But the team that I'm most impressed with is Washington. Washington, I think, is going to probably be in the driver's seat to dictate a lot of this upcoming season. Because Washington is the kind of team that's turning into the guys that you don't want to face, you don't want to deal with, you don't want to have them in a fight. Because if you're in a fight with Washington, they're going to throw you those body shots that really hurt. And as they accumulate those body shots, it makes you want to hit the ground. If you ever watched a boxing or an MMA match, you know that the guy who absorbs the most body shots in a fight usually is the fighter that loses that fight. And Washington feels like they are going to be the masters of the body shot. They're going to be the masters of wearing you down. And the Eagles got to face them in a couple weeks. They face them in week 4. Then you got to face them again a couple weeks after that. So the Eagles are going to have to deal with the team that's going to make the game the most difficult for them. Now, the good news for the Eagles is that they have already shown that they can win close games. Dallas hasn't shown me that yet. And even though I believe Dallas has the second best defense in all the NFL, and even though I believe that Dak Prescott is better than some of the haters say he is, and even though I believe that Dallas is a bona fide postseason team, winning your first 2 games of the season in a landslide fashion might not be a good thing for the Cowboys moving forward. Because when they start playing more difficult matchups, it may spell problems for them. They got to play the 49ers and the Chargers and the Rams and the Eagles for 4 straight weeks. The Cowboys are going to be fortunate if they come out of that stretch 2-2. And part of the reason why I say that is because they get the 49ers and the Chargers back-to-back weeks on the road. And while the Chargers right now are 0-2, they have lost 4 straight games within a field goal margin. They are fighting in every single game. The Rams are a way better team than some of the experts projected. And of course, the 49ers, I think, are probably the most. I think the 49ers are the gatekeeper for the NFC Championship game. I think that if the Eagles or Cowboys have to face the 49ers early in the postseason and not in the NFC Championship game, both the Eagles and Cowboys will have problems because the 49ers are a difficult matchup for every team in the NFL. And I think the Eagles present the Cowboys a unique problem. And that unique problem is, I don't know if the Cowboys are built to be able to run the ball enough to play keep away from a guy like Jalen Hurts in the Eagles offense. Because remember, last year, Jalen Hurts, through the first 5 games of the season, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Not an MVP start to the season. It was what Jalen did from week 5 on that cemented himself as the NFL MVP runner-up. And the Eagles play the Cowboys on November 5th. Just something to think about after week 2 of the NFL season. All right, coming up next, we will talk about the NFC and the New York Football Giants with Gary Myers, best-selling author, longtime NFL beat reporter. He will join me next here on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN, mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. It's week 3, and the Eagles travel to Tampa to take on the Bucs on Monday Night Football.
And it's Swift again for another 9 yards. He's over 100. Not much they can do about it.
Eagles radio network coverage begins at 6 p.m. Merrill and Mike call all the action starting at 7:15. This is South Jersey's official home for Philadelphia Eagles football. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station. Brought to you by
Jenkins Plumbing and Heating at jenkinsandsons.com. Piccalilli Inn. Nobody beats the Piccalilli, Route 206 in Chemung. Frank Vincent Windows, Roofing, Siding, and Doors make your home look new again. BMW of Atlantic City. Shop our complete inventory online at bmwatlanticcity.com. And First Bank of Sea Isle.
97.3 ESPN FM is your official home in South Jersey for Eagles football. 97.3 ESPN FM.
97.3 ESPN has teamed up with Seize the Deal for incredible weekly offers from some fantastic local restaurants. Here's this week's big deal.
Get a $50 gift card good for use at Molly's Kitchen in Northfield for just $25.
Get this great deal starting Friday at 9 a.m. at seizethedeal.com. Hurry, chances are this deal will sell quickly. For more info on this great deal, go to seizethedeal.com.
seizethedeal.com.
Hi, honey. Happy first day back at work. Can't wait to see you tonight. We are so proud of you.
Daddy, love you.
There are many reasons to start recovery. If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction, we are here to help. Call us. Our trained counselors are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to help. Your recovery is within reach. Call 844-REACH-NJ to learn about medication that can support your recovery. A message from the New Jersey Department of Human Services.
Flounder season is gearing up, and the one stop for everything you need is the bait and tackle shop at Utch's Marina in historic Cape May. Come to Utch's for a huge selection of spinning and conventional rods and combos for the boat or the surf, with top name brands available like Penn, Tsunami, Ocean Max, Shimano, and more. Utch's Marina, your home away from home at the foot of the bridge in Cape May. Stop by any day or visit CapeMayHarbor.com.
Hey, did you know Vistaprint prints everything a small business needs? Like if a barbershop needs signage, we print outdoor signs, posters, and banners. Or if a ballet school needs merch,
1, 2,
we print tote bags, t-shirts, hoodies, hats. Or if a coffee shop needs a total refresh,
vanilla latte for Mike.
Vistaprint designs logos and prints it on menus, mugs, paper bags, anything. Because with Vistaprint, the printabilities are endless. Print it all with 25% off for new customers with code NEW25 at Vistaprint.com.
After a big dinner, my nighttime heartburn would keep me up. I'd be taking antacid after antacid all night long. But then I tried Prilosec OTC. Just one pill a day blocks my frequent heartburn for a full 24 hours, giving me one-and-done heartburn relief. Without heartburn keeping me up, I could have a restful night's sleep.
Prilosec OTC. One pill a day, 24 hours, zero heartburn. It's possible while taking Prilosec OTC. Use as directed for 14 days to treat frequent heartburn, not for immediate relief.
Wow, Total Wine has everything at the lowest price in town. I found a Prosecco for under $8, your favorite Cabernet, and Ruthie.
Ruthie?
That's me. Always happy to help. Love what you find at Total Wine & More. Drink responsibly, B21.
Are you looking for a truly unique experience? Sweetwater Marina Riverdeck is just the place. They feature roll-up garage doors to merge the indoor and outdoor space for the nice weather. You'll love to sit on their lawn at one of their picnic tables overlooking the Mullica River at sunset. Whether you're looking to have a nice casual dinner with a family or enjoy live music with friends, it's always a great time at the Riverdeck. Your dream day at Sweetwater Marina and Riverdeck will be nothing short of amazing. Visit SweetwaterRiverdeck.com for more info on their upcoming events and daily hours. That's SweetwaterRiverdeck.com.
A lot of schools talk about training the cybersecurity workforce of the future, but do they really deliver? My Computer Career has been supplying the IT workforce with thousands of skilled, certified pros for 15 years. Train with the experts in support, networking, or cybersecurity and start your career in months, not years. Upskill even faster. On campus or live online. Qualified students may get financial aid, including the GI Bill. My Computer Career. Accredited, acclaimed, effective. Take the free career evaluation at mycomputercareer.edu.
Hi, this is Dr. Brad Schaefer. As a podiatrist, I can tell you no two people's feet are alike, which is why I recommend Dr. Scholl's custom fit orthotic inserts. They're customized for your feet, so you get a unique solution your feet really need, not just a one-size-fits-all insole. They're clinically proven to provide pain relief for achy feet, knees, lower back, plantar fasciitis, and heels. Take the Dr. Scholl's custom fit orthotics assessment in Walmart today, now in the foot care aisle.
Something good to know from First Bank of Sea Isle City. We have all of today's innovative banking products just like the big banks, but we offer something they can't. A personal community focus. You save time when you pay your bills online. It's fast, easy, and convenient. First Bank of Sea Isle City, a community bank that delivers more for you every day. Personal service, today's technology, from the people who truly care. Learn more at firstbankseaisle.com.
Member FDIC, housing lender. You're listening Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Don't forget, Game Night is being brought to you by Jenkins & Sons. One call does it all. No need to call the drain guy, the heating guy, or the plumbing guy. Just call Jenkins at 609-641-6440. If you're unsure if your home is ready for the fall and winter season, just call Jenkins and find out how you can save on your next utility bill with a new system thanks to Jenkins Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. 609-641-6440 and visit them online at jenkinsandsons.com. Joining us right now on the phone line, he is the best-selling author of books like Brady versus Manning, as well as How About Them Cowboys. It is Gary Myers. He is back with another great book. This one, I'm already a few chapters in. Once a Giant, the story of victory, tragedy, and life after football. Gary's covered the NFL for a long time. We're doing this right now here on 97.3 ESPN. Gary, welcome back. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. And I wanted to start with this. I feel as I'm reading this book, it kind of has a similar feel that you've done with some of your other books, which is you do a great job of weaving in the fact that these are more than just, stars from the gridiron, that these are people as well, and their personal experiences have such a big influence on what happens on and off the field as well. For you, when you are writing a book like this, how important is it for you to focus on the fact that these are human beings, not just football players?
Well, to me, that's really important. I wanted to make this more than just a football book, recounting the 1986 season, for the Giants, which was the year they broke a 30-year draft an NFL championship. This is a book about life after football and the impact that the game took on these players, with mental health issues, physical issues, in many cases financial issues. And I brought in football because in a way that this team really became a brotherhood in 1986. And the bond that they formed, winning a championship together, remains really strong 37 years later, which is something that makes this team extremely unique. So the stories I write about in this book are, some of them are very, very personal and sensitive, and I appreciate the players opening up to me and trusting me with some of these, some of their life experiences.
Gary, you mentioned life experiences. I think one of the biggest things people might not know about this book is the time you got to spend talking to Bill Parcells. And, the way you portray Bill Parcells, I think it's in a way that I think most people might not see that, the guy that he was, barking on the sidelines in the 80s with the Giants is a bit of a different man now. How much of that was a surprise, or how much of that was important for you to portray?
Well, you have to remember, he's obviously at a very different point in his life. In his mid-40s, when he was coaching the Giants, and now, last month he turned 82 years old. And he was a hard-driving coach who had a love-hate relationship with a lot of his players. And it's so much different today. They look at him, and I think he considers himself the patriarch of that team. And he's kind of become a compassionate, grandfatherly type to a lot of these players, whether it's giving out life advice, and so many of them rely on him for big decisions in their life. And the part that people didn't know about, and I didn't know about this until I sat down and spoke with him, is that he's kind of become a safety net financially for players who are having issues. And what people don't know about NFL players from that era is they know this, but the money wasn't anything like it is today. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them needed to work jobs in the off season, or, make sure they were set up with a second career as soon as their football playing days were over. And that the medical expenses really pile up when they get to about this age, in their mid-50s to mid-60s. Back in those days, the NFL only provided health insurance for a year and a half. Now it's up to 5 years, which is better, but still, it doesn't cover the years where these players are really going to need help when they need the knee replacements and the hip replacements and the shoulder replacements, things of that nature. So Bill has become this safety net for players when if they feel, they have no place else to turn, he's very happy to help them out, which I think is incredibly unusual. And it's the book is filled with a lot of heartbreaking stories, but this is one of the heartwarming stories about how Bill, feels this emotional attachment to his players because how much they sacrificed for him, physically during the years that they played for him.
You mentioned about the sacrifice. It immediately makes me think of when you tell the story in the book about how Parcells would invite these guys to was basically like a pre-training camp, and how, if guys didn't want to go and participate in those activities of offseason, they were basically not cut out for his team. And about the story about how basically Parcells went to the guys and like, look, if we don't win, I could lose my job after a horrible first season. And it seems like to me, reading the book, that, that Giants team, especially the 86 team, even more so than the other Super Bowl championship team, that team was so much in his image that I don't know if like a lot of football fans who didn't watch that team understand that.
Yeah, I mean, he was a real blue-collar coach, and that was a really blue-collar team. Now, the thing about being invited to this pre-camp thing, it was actually at the beginning of training camp, and I just kind of I was just kind of having fun with the way I worded it, because the players call it the Pace Party, because the training camp was held at Pace University in Westchester, outside of New York, and they were just saying, a party, and it wasn't really a party, but that if you didn't show enthusiasm about taking part in this drill, you can, and if you were a borderline player, you'd find your bags packed on the street in front of the dorm with the van getting ready to take you to the airport. And so it was a brutal drill that was very physical, and players were encouraged to go hard all the time, but a lot of these guys they were friends with each other, and they didn't want to beat the crap out of each other in practice, and so they would they called it brother-in-lawing, and they kind of winked at each other, and they kind of took it easy on each other during this drill. And no coach could ever run that today. They just wouldn't get away with it. The players would be complaining to the Players Association. This was a much different period of time when Parcells and just about every coach was running 2-day practices in pads every day. Now in training camp, you're not allowed to have more than one practice, and they only go in pads a couple of times a week. During the season, Parcells would practice them in pads, and they'd be banging heads, where today, I don't think once the season starts, there's practices in pads very often, and certainly the drills aren't all that physical. So the game has really changed. A lot of things are for the better, obviously, as the league is trying to take care of the players.
Gary Myers joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, author of the new book, Once a Giant, A Story of Victory, Tragedy, and Life After Football. Of course, you can get it wherever you get your books, Amazon. I got it downloaded on my Audible device so I can listen to it while I'm driving. So however you get your books, that's where you can get it. Gary, when you talk about, the history of these guys in the moment, right? That Giants team it's not even an argument. It's one of the greatest teams of all time. For you, when you're writing this book, what is important do you think people maybe don't know about the 86 team that you felt was important for them to know?
Well, like I mentioned before, Josh, I think the camaraderie that developed on this team was really unusual. Now, you have to remember that was the pre-free agency days, so rosters weren't turning over 30% every year. You'd have your handful of rookies that make the team. But other than that, it was basically the teams, the foundation of these teams stayed intact. And the Giants made the playoffs in 84, 85, and 85, won a wild card game, and then lost in the divisional round. So and each time they lost, 84 they lost to the Niners, 85 they lost to the Bears, and most teams went on to win the Super Bowl. Giants went into 86 fully believing that was going to be, and they were totally focused on winning the Super Bowl. But along the way, you're around these guys, players are around each other nonstop, pretty much. In those days, training camp opened in the middle of July, and then the Super Bowl was towards the end of January. So that's a long period of time to be around each other that much. And so in order to help them get through it, they played jokes on each other. It was a real fraternity type atmosphere, where they would just pull pranks on each other, pull pranks on the coaches, try to keep things light. I think that really helped. There's so much in the book that people will laugh about, behind the scenes stuff that the players, enlightened me about, and I really enjoyed writing those sections of the book. The sections where players were, talking about the depression that they went through, and how they had considered a handful of them taking their own lives. I mean, that was very difficult to listen to. But as I said early on, Josh, I really appreciated that they trusted me enough to tell me these stories, because, for the most part, nobody but their families knew about it. And now, with people buying the book and talking about it, and maybe on shows like yours, I think it, it'll open fans' eyes to really the challenges that these guys face in their life after football. And a lot of it is because they played football.
Gary, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is one of the superstars of that 86 Giants team was Lawrence Taylor. And, in today's world where people who are watching football who didn't see Lawrence Taylor, they're trying to make an analogy that Micah Parsons of the Cowboys, for example, reminds them of Lawrence Taylor. And I know Bill Belichick has said numerous times in interviews that Lawrence Taylor is the greatest player that he ever coached in his lifetime. Talk about for a moment how great Lawrence Taylor was, the football player, and give some context to it, because I think a lot of people, they know who Lawrence Taylor is, the name, but maybe they don't actually remember how incredible he was as a player.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL had never seen a player so big that was so fast and so powerful and so capable of wrecking a game. Josh, it's so funny to me every time a player like Micah Parsons comes along, and there's been a list of them, Derek Thomas, Junior Seau, just a whole bunch that everybody's been saying, that's the next Lawrence Taylor. And there'll never be another Lawrence Taylor. I mean, he was an original that is very hard to copy and paste. Michael Parsons is a tremendous player. And maybe he'll be next in line when you make the list of, players that these edge rushers who changed the game. But he'll never be as good as Lawrence Taylor. The impact that he made, he really changed the game. And I'll give you an example that when he first came in the league, Giants were playing a 3-4 defense, so he was the right outside linebacker. And coaches initially attempted to block him with a running back or by having the tackle move out a little bit, and meet him head on. But he was much too quick for tackles and much too powerful for running backs. And, so how did you block him? Well, when the Giants played the 49ers in the playoffs, Lawrence's rookie year, Bill Walsh had a left tackle named Keith Farnhorst and a left guard named John Ayers. And so he knew that Farnhurst was not going to be able to contain Taylor by himself. So what Walsh did was he slid the guard out to be the second line there to block Taylor instead of having a running back there. So he had to get through two offensive linemen in order to get to Joe Montana. And, he was mildly successful in that game from what I remember. But because Lawrence was like the first of that generation of these outside linebackers who were great pass rushers, initially coaches didn't know how to scheme against him. And even when they adjusted to him, he found ways to overcome that. He was just a tremendous player. I think Parsons is great. But I've seen others at similar points in their career that we've always thought, well, maybe he will be the next Lawrence Taylor. And then they failed to sustain it over the course of a decade like Lawrence did.
Gary, before I let you go, I got to ask you a quick question about the modern NFC, because the NFC East is the only division in the NFL right now that does not have a winless team in their division. What is your take after 2 weeks on the NFC East in 2023?
Well, Josh, we thought going into the season it would be a really strong division. And the Giants came really close to being that winless team, down 20-0 at the half to Arizona, which the Cardinals might be the worst team in the league. So, you knew that the Eagles were going to be good. And I thought the Cowboys were a little bit overrated coming into the season because the Cowboys are always overrated. And the fact that they've outscored the Giants and Jets 70-10 over the first 2 weeks, has people jumping on the bandwagon. To me, the season for the Cowboys doesn't start until the playoffs start. They haven't been to the Super Bowl since the 1995 season. But this overall, Washington obviously is an improved team. Eric Bieniemy's done a really nice job with Sam Howell there through the first couple of weeks to scoring a bunch of points. So I think this will be a really strong division straight through. Ultimately it'll come down to the two Philadelphia-Dallas games. I think that'll decide the division, but it'll be fun to watch because the NFC East has been down for a long time, especially since the days of, the era that I'm writing about, which was the mid to late 80s, when it was the NFC Beast. And then it became the NFC Least.
Right.
It's nice that it's improved enough now that these games are, other than the Giants Cowboy games, I expect that from the first week of the season, I expect these games to be very competitive.
He is best-selling author Gary Myers, also a Hall of Fame voter. His books have included Brady versus Manning, How About Them Cowboys, and the next great book that he wrote is out right now, Once a Giant, a story of victory, tragedy, and life after football. You can order your copy, the In Your Hand book on Amazon, or you can be someone like me who grabs the Audible audiobook so you can listen to it while you drive. However you get it, I highly recommend it. Gary, always appreciate you jumping on. It's good to talk to you again, and I hope the book has great success, man.
Thank you so much, Josh, and I really appreciate being on.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Check it on the text board, 609-403-0973. That's next here on 97.3 ESPN.
The hunt for October continues on ESPN Radio.
Swing and a miss, and it's over.
It's a showdown prime for October.
Out of here! And this place is going bananas.
Both the Orioles and Astros are fighting for the top of their divisions, and they go head-to-head in a critical showdown in Houston.
Way back there, and gone! Alex Bregman.
Coverage begins today at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Listen to Major League Baseball on 97.3 ESPN.
When you have a slow healing or complex wound, wound specialist Larry Lodico and his team at the Wound Care Clinic in Northfield provide the latest techniques to speed healing and get you back to your life. The Wound Care Clinic of South Jersey. Expert care with a compassionate touch.
With GMF financing to qualified buyers, excludes Corvette, excludes fire sales.
In today's market, so many dealers are selling at or even above MSRP.
But Bennett Chevrolet isn't like most dealers. We're still selling new vehicles at GM supplier employee prices. Yes, you pay what employees pay. We got famous selling new vehicles at GM supplier employee prices and by giving you all the rebates. That's right. Unlike other dealers at Bennett, you get both. And right now you'll save even more with available 0% financing. But wait, it gets better. Bennett is paying an incredible $8,000 minimum for any trade towards any pre-owned in stock. That's at least $8,000 for total junk. Imagine how much you'll get for a good trade. And our non-commissioned sales staff is paid on your satisfaction, not by trying to sell you more. So there's no pressure, haggles, or hassles. Just pure joy. So come on, find new roads at Bennett Chevrolet in Egg Harbor Township and BennettChevy.com.
Next question. This place is known for its extraordinary financial services since 1902. Contestant 3?
Motion First Bank?
Oh, nice try. Sorry, everyone. The answer we were looking for is Ocean First Bank. Ocean First. But the good news is everyone goes home a winner with convenient access to deposit services, mortgage loans, business financing solutions, and digital banking options for business and personal accounts. Through local branches and online banking, your needs always come first at Ocean First Bank.
Now get 5.25% APY when you open a 6-month CD with at least $10,000 of new money to Ocean First. Learn more. Open yours with a local branch or at oceanfirst.com. Restrictions apply.
Equal housing lender, equal opportunity lender, member FDIC.
New Brake Best Select Pro. Professional grade brake pads and rotors from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. When you want experience, go for the best. Pick up the phone and call Dennisville Fence.
Hey, South Jersey contractors, is your current supplier failing on your railing? Dennisville Fence can supply or install whatever type of railing you need. With the largest selection in South Jersey, we are your go-to source for cable rail, glass rail, aluminum, and composite. Plus, we have a mile of white vinyl T-railing in stock to help you stay on time and on budget. Have trouble getting up the steps? Our instant rail and ADA handrail will have you covered. Don't leave your customer in the dark. Our full line of low-voltage lighting will knock your job out of the park. With materials delivered right to your home or job site, we make it easy to get you the products you need when you need them. So start planning your project today. Visit DennisvilleFence.com or our newest location at 229 Shore Road in Summers Point. Again, that's 229 Shore Road in Summers Point.
Pick up the phone and call Dennisville Fence. 1-800-499-FENCE.
Visit DennisvilleFence.com.
Wow, Total Wine has everything at the lowest price in town. I found this single barrel bourbon, an awesome Cabernet, and Ruthie.
Ruthie?
That's me. Always happy to help. Love what you find at Total Wine and More. Drink responsibly. Be 21.
The IRS is ramping up collection, and if you owe back taxes or have years of unfiled tax returns, listen carefully. Before it's too late, check your eligibility for the Fresh Start program still offered by the IRS to reduce or even eliminate your tax problems. Call our special hotline number now and find out in minutes if you qualify for these life-changing debt reduction programs. Business or personal, if you're in a payment plan with no end in sight, have unfiled tax returns, under audit, have a wage or bank levy, or finally just want to know your options, call the experts at Republic Tax Relief and stop collections immediately. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau with a 5-star rating from Yelp, this veteran-owned company has the fight you need to take on the IRS. Don't go at it alone. Call their hotline number now, 800-724-9484. That's 800-724-9484. Find out if you qualify today. Call 800-724-9484 or go to republictaxrelief.com.
Now, the Balls Out Block Party featuring the Cheesesteak Egg Roll Bowl is on Saturday, September 30th at Resorts Casino Hotel. Witness the world's #1 professional eater, Joey Chestnut, as he competes for glory in Resort's first ever pro eating contest. The boardwalk will be active all day with a live band, beer stein hoisting contest, football toss challenge, and fun and games with 97.3 ESPN and more. The event is free, so head to the boardwalk and beach from 11:30 to 5:30 on Saturday, September 30th. Resorts Casino Hotel, one of a kind.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks to Jerry Myers for joining the show. Always enjoy having guests like him on. Don't forget to call Jenkins if you're not sure if your home is ready for the fall and winter season. If you're worried that you will not stay warm enough this winter, or maybe you weren't as cool as you wanted to be during the summer, call Jenkins Plumbing and Heating today about a new system from American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning or a Mitsubishi ductless system. Take advantage of financing up to $15,000 from South Jersey Gas or Atlantic City Electric. Find out how you can save with rebates from these local utility companies and with a new system when you call Jenkins at 609-641-6440 online at jenkinsandsons.com. All right, checking on the text board right now, 609-403-0973. That's the text. We're also the DM the show, 973 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle. Shout out to George Summers Point, who basically just said he enjoyed the Gary Myers conversation about his book. Thank you for a great show tonight. Well, I appreciate that, George Summers Point. You know, it's also a little selfish on my part because I enjoy talking to these authors about these books. You know, I've been very blessed over the years to be able to interview a lot of cool people because of these different books that they've written about football history. You know, whether it is a Gary Myers. I mean, this is the second time I've interviewed him about one of his books. You know, I've interviewed Jeff Pearlman a couple times over the years. I've had the opportunity to, I remember interviewing Armin Katayan when he wrote the Tiger Woods book years ago. So, I mean, I've literally have a collection of books just based on this job. And you have the opportunity to be behind this microphone. And so I appreciate feedback like that, George Summers Point, because it, you know, for me, I like bringing these, you know, these people, these authors and their hard work. I mean, you know, it's hard to write a book. You know, I have to write for our 97.3 ESPN website, you know, daily throughout the month, all year long. And, you know, that in and of itself is, it involves work to do writing. And for someone to sit down and do the type of exhaustive work and research to write a book like these, I just think it deserves attention. And, you know, these are some great stories in these books as well. I mean, I remember, like I said, the Tiger Woods book. I mean, the stories in that book, you know, the stories in, you know, the Bo Jackson book that Jeff Pearlman wrote. I mean, those stories are absolutely bonkers to me. Some of the legendary, bizarre aspects of these people's lives. You know, it's just, it really shows you why pro athletes get to the level that they do, because there's just something different about most of these guys than the rest of us. And it's not that, you know, if me, Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN, or George in Summers Point, or, you know, we will get to Matt in Delaware's text in just a moment. It's not that, you know, if we were born with the gifts and talents that these people were born with, that we couldn't have success, but it's that many times the athletes who are great, they're great because it's more than just physical skill. You know, for every player like Patrick Mahomes, who's physically gifted, there are other physically gifted guys like a Jeff George or a Josh Rosen or guys like that who never pan out, who never work out in the NFL. You know, for every success story like Donovan McNabb, who had the good fortune of having a coach like Andy Reid coach him in his career. Well, Donovan McNabb gets Andy Reid, Tim Couch doesn't. You know what I mean? In the same draft. Or, you know, you have a guy like Brady Quinn. Who knows what Brady Quinn could have been if he had a better situation than the Cleveland Browns, right? So, sometimes it's more than just the guy has talent. It's the fact that there's so many other variables that go into it. And, the reason why a Lawrence Taylor can be considered far and away arguably the greatest defensive player to ever live is because it was more than just he was physically gifted. It was because there was something different about him. I think a book like Once a Giant explains that, we've all seen A Football Life. If you're a diehard football fan, the documentary about Lawrence Taylor, but maybe you don't understand the other variables that went into the Giants locker room and what made Lawrence Taylor so different and so great. All right, let's get to Matt in Delaware. He wants to talk a little Phillies. Says, Josh, really hoping the Phillies can make another run. This year's bat's going to have to be extra hot in the postseason to deal with the shaky bullpen we have, especially against teams like the Dodgers and the Braves. Can't have our big guys going in slumps. When the playoffs start with pitching, it will be difficult to make a run. That's Matt in Delaware. Two things there, Matt. Number one, I don't know if the bullpen is actually shaky as much as the fact there are specific players who are shaky. Like, I think the bullpen overall this year is actually better than last year. You didn't have Craig Kimbrell last year. You didn't have Jeff Hoffman last year. You leaned on Zach Eflin for a huge chunk of the postseason to save your bullpen at times. So I don't know if the bullpen as a whole, Jeff. Matt in Delaware. I'm going to disagree with it. I don't know if the bullpen is actually that shaky. I think the problem is that there are specific guys in the bullpen that make you nervous. You know what I mean? Seranthony Dominguez is probably the most blatant example of that. I'm trying to figure out exactly what's wrong with him. I don't know if it's physical or mental, but it's obvious that something is not right with him. And I like to believe that, maybe in the postseason, like last year, he can hit a switch and turn it on. I just don't know if he can do that. So, for me, I understand how you say, but, the whole bullpen is not shaky. I think I've documented this in the past. Craig Kimbrell has had a handful of bad outings this year, but if you go over his entire season and even post All-Star break, it's not like every one of his outings has been bad or he has struggled in every one of those outings. I think it's because some of those outings have been they've been put under a microscope so intensely because of some of where the bad outings happen. Like the Bryce Harper gets them back in the game. They get the lead, 300th home run, and Kimbrell, fails to close the game. I think those situations make you look bad. But outside of Soto and Seranthony Dominguez, I think the bullpen overall is actually icky as we maybe feel like it is because of recent outings. And I think that, once you kick Michael Lorenz in the bullpen in the postseason, I think you're going to see a bullpen that's actually not going to need to ask Seranthony Dominguez or a Junior Marte or a Dylan Covey to come in certain situations, because those situations will instead have Michael Lorenzen or a Jeff Hoffman more often. Now, right now, you still have to rest some of these guys. You can't pitch them every night. Now, the part I do agree with you, Matt in Delaware, is the bat's got to show up. Look, for whatever you want to look at the Phillies World Series loss last year, the offense in many ways lost them the biggest games of the season. It wasn't the pitching staff. Even though the pitching staff felt like they got smashed by the Astros bats a couple times, it was really the fact you had 71 strikeouts as a team in the World Series. It really was what lost them those games. And you're right. If the offense does not stay locked and loaded, it's going to be a problem. Now, I will say that I documented this earlier in the Sports Bash with Mike Gilsey on 97.3 ESPN. Trey Turner on June 4th at a 232 232 batting average. Since June 4th, he is actually batting 270 and 21 home runs. So 21 of his 26 home runs this year have all been hit since June 4th. So between him and Schwarber, you could argue the Phillies are actually getting their bats going at the right time. And remember, you did start the year without Bryce Harper, and you love Bryce Harper in the postseason. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. I'll catch you tomorrow.
Hey, Mark. I just stopped in to say hello, and whoa, the phones are ringing off the hook. Safe to say business is going well?
Yeah, word of mouth kept us afloat after we opened. Then there was a bit of a lull, but it finally feels like we've been getting a steady flow of new customers over the past few months.
What have you been doing? It definitely looks like it's working.
Thanks. We needed to be able to be found where people are searching, and today that means being found online.
How'd you pull that off? Sounds pretty complicated.
No, it was easy. I went to townsquarelocal.com to see how many people are searching for my services in the area. Then the experts at Townsquare helped build my online presence, so my business could be found exactly when and where customers were looking.
That's amazing. Do you think they could help me too?
Absolutely. Go to townsquarelocal.com to find out.
Go to townsquarelocal.com for a local customer analysis that will show you how many customers are searching for your services online. It's quick and easy. Get your business found online by visiting townsquarelocal.com today.